How you doing, everybody? Hello, hope you guys have been well. I've definitely been away from this channel. I've been playing Hearthstone. Their duo mode came out, I think a lot of you guys know, and I thought I could kind of balance both, but it really is a little bit of effort to, make content. It is something that does require time, effort, and I have struggled, on maintaining it, but I am getting comments and just like people saying hello, I miss your Hearthstone stuff, would love reviews, stuff like that, and that does get to me. I do want to kind of come back to that when I can. I do think what I'll try to do is just set aside some time, some days, and try to make it not stressful. I have like this mental quality that I need, and sometimes if I can't get it up there, I just don't do anything. So I think I'll just try to be a little bit more chill and just try to make stuff and talk about the game, because I do still play. That's something very common. People ask, do I still play? I do still play. I am very interested and knowledgeable, and I still have my opinions on the new cards and whatnot. So I'll just try to make videos talking about it. I think a lot of you guys appreciate the insights or what I think about the new cards and strategies to do with them. So that'll be my current plan moving forward. Today we do have the Spotlight tier list. I did not do the one last month, and I do hear people saying, hey, I really like your Spotlight. So that's the game plan moving forward. Hopefully it sticks around. But yeah, other than that, that's the main thing I wanted to talk about. Let's get started into the video. Alright, so today we're talking about the June 2024 Spotlight Cache tier list. I'll probably make another video just talking about the cards, isolated what I think about these new cards, thoughts and opinions about that as well. But here we're going to be evaluating just the Spotlights. We've done this before. We have our consistent rating: S, no brainer; A, pretty good; B, solid if you like the available cards; and then C, a D, not really recommended, but if you really want a card or something like that, then still go it anyways. And if you like Spotlights, then go for it anyways. That's basically my rating. So first off, we already have something that's already out. We have the Thena, Modok, and Grandmaster Spotlight. So this has been a pretty interesting Spotlight for me. I think essentially you need to like the Thena playstyle. Now, I think this card is pretty good, pretty strong, like very strong. It just requires specific deck building constraints. It's one of the more restrictive cards, I think, kind of, in terms of you need to be able to play 2 cards every turn, which isn't that easy. It's not impossible. It's obviously not impossible, but it does mean you need a relatively low curve. And there are some cards that already fit into this playstyle. Angel, Kitty Pryde, those type of decks, like they kind of slot in already very easily. But you do need to consistently think about that when you're building this deck. So there's a little bit of deck limitation in there that I don't personally love too much, but it is a strong card. If you get 2 procs off, right, which I think is, like, if you're building a deck with this card, like and you draw this early, of course, like getting 2 procs is pretty easy. So that's a 2/7, which is already like fairly strong. You get 3 procs is a 2/10, right? And you can get more than that if you're really building around it. You can proc it. So this can be a really powerful like 2-drop. 2-drop's kind of hard to get like 2/10 power. That's very, very high, and this can do even better than that. So I just think this is a very strong card. But it does require those deck building constraints. Now, if you like just Kitty Pryde decks, if you like Angel decks, you like low curve bounce, maybe could definitely do something with this, then this is a really good card, and I definitely think it's strong. It's next to Modok Grandmaster. Basically, Modok, I think, is definitely worth picking up in the Spotlight. It is a Series 4. And Grandmaster is okay as well. It did get buffed, but it's not really a shining star right now. Maybe the buff does help a little bit, but I do think Modok and Grandmaster are playable cards that can push it up. So base Thena, I think, is pretty B tier. So I'm being a little bit more, at least, generous with the base tiers of cards. Like usually all my like if you're only getting the new card, it's like C or D every time. But I just think with the way that the Spotlights have been going, It's just you have to have a higher priority on the new card. Like that has to matter a lot. So I'm kind of adjusting as well. So I do think Thena is pretty strong. We've seen the stats. It's shown up consistently. So that's my current ratings for this particular week. Next up, we have Sersi. So this is definitely one of the weirder ratings I've ever done, but I think it's kind of something that when you look at it, kind of makes sense. So we have Sersi with 2 Series 4 cards. So Meek and Phoenix Force. I don't think either of these cards are bad, but I wouldn't pick up a spotlight because of either of these cards, right? Phoenix Force is sometimes strong, but has very big consistency issues. It's always been my issue with Phoenix Force. And Meek is a good card as well, but the issue is that if you're playing discard, you're usually playing hella discard right now. Like that is the prevailing force. You're not really playing the standard discard engine, and this doesn't help hella at all. It's really for more traditional discard, but you're not really seeing that much of it. So it's a good card, but just not in a good place in the meta right now. So there's not really a big like, ooh, you should get this for either of the other two. So it's just like, yeah, these cards are there, but you could get them and then not use them for the month, which is really not great. And you like, there's no like incentive. You're not going to be like, oh, let me play a hella deck, and then you're like, oh, I'll put Meek in my hella. No, you won't. So it's just in a weird spot. So they're not really the reason why I would get the spotlight. Now, I'm pretty high on Sersi. I think we've seen with Blink and stuff that being able to transform a weaker card into a stronger card is just very powerful. And there's a lot you could do with Sersi, I think, which is pretty powerful. You know, Sentry can be, those voids can be removed. You can also buff like things like a Brood tokens. You can buff all 3 of them into 4 drops. Like that's pretty engaging to me. So I think Sersi has a pretty good place. So I'm pretty high on Sersi. So it's got a pretty good rating for me, and it's the reason why you get the spotlight. And I'm really not that strongly motivated by a Meek or a Phoenix Force. So it's pretty much Sersi the whole way down. If you're getting this spotlight, it's because you like Sersi, and the other two, just for me, they don't really move the needle at all in whether you're getting this spotlight at all. So it's just straight Bs because the base is B and then everything. The other two don't change anything at all. They're also Series 4 tokens. Like maybe if Phoenix Force for Meek was a Series 5, then that might also be strong enough, but they're both Series 4, so you can definitely just spend the tokens if you really need those cards. Next up, we have Makkari, right? So this is a pretty interesting card here. 3/3 baseline is, so this is a free card, right? If you have this in your deck, you draw, you just get 3 power for free, which is pretty engaging. There's definitely some easier ways to utilize it. I would say Silver Surfer, which you can just get +2 base on it, and then Cerebro 3. All right, those are the 2 that really jump out to me. So like, yeah, you'd play this in that. But other than that, like you do need like a mid-range deck that doesn't really care about cards, or you could also use it in like Loki where you're generating cards or something, and you don't really need the cards that you draw, right? There's another way of where this could be good, where it's like, okay, you draw this early, but you're generating 2-3 cards every turn anyways, so you don't really care if you're losing a card in your deck. So those are really some of the decks where I'd see this pretty good, and that does sound engaging. In the issues like against combo decks, a lot of the time 3 power doesn't really move the needle on whether you win a lane or not, and it does move randomly, so it can clog. Let's say, maybe you play Brood early, right, in Silver Surfer, right, and then hey, you draw this and it fills that Brood lane, and then you're like, now, let's say they really contest that lane. Now you don't have an answer to like deal with that because they're going to assume you have +2 or +8 for the Silver Surfer. So if they have their math correct, they might be able to just like preemptively win that lane, and you can't really do anything about it. So there are some downsides from it, but it's still a free 3 power. So there's definitely ways to utilize this. This is not a card you want too strong because If it's like a 3-5 or something, then you might just play it every deck, and then you don't want that in the meta. So do think they're being a little bit careful with it, but does sound reasonable for those like decks that can really utilize it and get free power off of it. And then Gladiator and X23, Gladiator Series 4, but still pretty powerful card. Definitely something I would be interested in picking up. And then X23, I think, is, for me, the best card in this spotlight. This is the reason why you get the spotlight for me. X23 is just a staple. Very strong, good in Destroy. Destroy's always been good. And there's just a lot of decks that can just say, hey, X23, come in my deck. You're gonna do well. So if you like Destroy and you don't have X23, like, this is just a staple. It's consistently been a staple, hasn't been nerfed or adjusted, just a very good card. So if you are picking up the Spotlight, it'd mainly be for X23. But if you do like Makkari, you do like Gladiator, you can definitely pick up the other two and not feel too bad about it. So that's my opinion on this one. Next up, we have Phastos. So I guess for me, we'll talk about it more, but I'm the lowest on this card of the season. I just think that it's hard to build a deck that uses both of the buffs equally well, right? Like, I think I could build a deck that uses the -1 well. I think I could build a deck that uses +2 power to your deck well. I don't know how easy it is to build a deck that uses both. What you can still play this in Surfer. Once again, it's a 3 power card, so and I guess that is the deck, right? For me, that uses both well, right? Silver Surfer, that's the one. But this feels like a card that goes in more decks than Silver Surfer to me, right? I feel like you would play this in a lot of other decks besides Surfer, and I'm not sure how easy it is to build around it. Now, I'm always interested in a deck building challenge. Now, I don't know, like, if it's strong, because it is a 3-drop, so usually for 3-drops, I need, like, relatively good base power of, like, I play this, I'm getting, Gladiator worth of power every time, right? Like, 3-7, 3-8 every time. I don't know if I'm doing that every time I play this here, because -1 cost, sometimes if you're hitting like a 6-drop, turn into a 5, and you don't have any way to really take advantage of that, you're not running 1s or anything like that, which is very common. It doesn't matter that you made the 6 cost a 5 cost, unless you're running multiple 6 costs and you hit one perfectly, and then it's, then you have the right curve, and then you can play your 6 for 5. Like, yeah, there are ways, but is that consistent? I feel like it's very not. So I'm relatively low on this, but when it's in the spotlights, right? Corvus, Spider-Ham's good, but it is a Series 4, so it doesn't move the needle too much, but it is a good Series 4. This is one of the better Series 4s to pick up, so it is pretty solid. And Corvus is a staple in Hela decks. If you are playing Hela, this is a pretty powerful piece to have in your collection. So if you like the Hela game plan, you're like, oh yeah, I like to do that. Or maybe you're tired of losing to Hela and you're like, I want to be that guy or girl, then you can definitely pick up Corvus Glaive. So Corvus Glaive, thumbs up for me. Maybe the highlight of this spotlight, but I do think the others are cool. I'm a little bit low on Phastos, but could be wrong. That's just my personal opinion. So that's kind of how I have the ratings for this particular week. And then finally, we have Arishem. So this card is so interesting. And also has the same Sersi problem, though. Like, because you're picking this for Arishem. And I have a lot of opinions about this card. I think this card, overall, okay, let me show you. I think this card is absolutely fascinating of a card design decision, and could lead to some very incredible games that are not possible before. You can make some games that you've never ever seen before, and I do wonder what 2 Arishem players against each other looks like. What does that look like at all? Now, I will say this is kind of like a Thanos level card to me, in that if not balanced properly is a really big problem in both directions. Like, it could either be like this card just sucks, and I would say, like, week 1 you could probably absolutely build a deck to mess this up hard, right? You have the same Thanos issues that you used to have, where Darkhawk is really good, rocks are really good, right? To just mess with this. However, they can play like card generation, right? So you're getting extra energy. So card generation is pretty powerful if you can just like, here, I generate powerful cards that I keep using against you, and you can't really stop that. So there's also that randomness factor where you can't fully play around an Arishem player. Like, they have some tricks. They're going baked into the deck building. So you can't always say they always lose to whatever, because they could just randomly have this really nice counter that you're not really playing around. So definitely an interesting card. I do think, for me, this is the card you want in your collection. Like, regardless of how strong it is, this is a card you want in your collection. So maybe this should be A tier just from that, because I do think this is like one of the more interesting cards I've ever seen them release. Like, big bad level, right? Like, actually big bad level, I would say. So I do want to pick it up, right? I just don't know if it's like, do you have to have this card in your deck, in your collection? I mean, maybe from a collection standpoint, maybe yes, but from like a balance, high tier win rate standpoint, probably I'm leaning no. I feel like you probably won't need this. Like, there's going to be cards that can deal with this. So another thing, oh man, now I'm getting too long. But overall, like, this is an interesting card, and Black Swan and Hercules don't help at all. Like, Black Swan did not work out. I would say not a lot of people play it. I think bounce decks already have so low curve that you don't need to make the low curve even lower. I think that's the main problem with Black Swan. Like, you're making the low curve even lower, it doesn't do anything, right? You're already running one drops, multiple one drops, right? So you play the 3 costs, like, yeah, my one drops are now 0, but I could already play the one drops, so there's no real appeal there for me. So I'm not super sold there. And Hercules has just been bad. They try to buff it, but it's still bad. Maybe move, we'll see a new day at some point, but today is not that day. So you're really only getting this for Arishem. So kind of like Sersi problem. Black Swan is a Series 5, but to me that doesn't matter in this case, because regardless of Series 4 or Series 5, you're gonna not using it in a lot of cases. So it doesn't really matter what series it is here. So that's my thoughts on this one. So overall, it is an interesting week. They're putting some of the more interesting cards for me in next to like pretty bad supporting casts. I think Black Swan, Hercules, and Meek Phoenix Force, both being Series 4, are just like some of the lower tier cards you could support it with. But the cards are interesting. Sersi's interesting. Thena's strong. Makkari could be pretty powerful. Hopefully not too powerful where it's in everything, but could be pretty good in the decks to where you can get free value off of it. And Phastos is the one I'm lowest on, but that doesn't mean it's bad. It just means that I think it's hard to consistently build a deck that utilizes both effects equally well. So, and something to talk about is like, you play this card, it applies -1 and +2 randomly to each of those. It's not like doing -1 across the board or +2 across the board. That might make it better. Right, because it'd be more consistent. You draw and you know the rest of your decks are -1 or +2, and then you can adjust, right? But here you don't know, right? So I guess that is something. I wonder if that was too good or something like that or whatever. But definitely an interesting ones. But overall, that's my thoughts. Hope you guys hope you guys are doing well. I know it's been a while. I'll try to do more stuff in the future. But yeah, thanks for being here. Take care of yourselves. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and if you like Hearthstone, I guess you could catch me on stream. But other than that, peace out.
Educated calling snap. Once you watch him, you won't go back. He'll teach you to marvel snap. Your skills will be